In the summer of 749, the great Buddha at the Todaiji Temple here in Nara was finally completed. To celebrate this august event, the emperor and all his court traveled to the great hall here and presented their felicitations to the Buddha with all the dignity and grandeur at their command. Eloquent speeches were read by state ministers. Hymns of praise were sung by large choruses of priests, and the full company of court musicians and dancers, numbering in the hundreds, presented regal spectacles suitable for the gods of both heaven and of earth.
This colorful style of music and dance had its origins in China, but it was frequently transported to Japan by way of Korea. In the 5th century, Korean court musicians came here in Japan to perform at the funeral of an emperor. It was for the same purpose that their musical descendants performed in February 1989 for the end of the Showa era. What an incredible continuity. In the 7th century, another Korean musician is said to have introduced to Japan Chinese secular dance. By the 8th century, Asian continental music and dance was firmly entrenched in the Japanese court.
This stately pageant first evolved during China's colorful Tang Dynasty from a melting pot of popular and ceremonial dances from all parts of Asia. During the 7th through the 10th centuries, foreign goods, traders, and cultural traditions flowed into China from the west, overland from Persia and Syria, and over the sea from India and the Malay Peninsula, arriving through Canton and other ports. The cosmopolitan tastes of Arab, Indian, and Malaysian merchants created a need for fine entertainment. In the Chinese capital city of Chang'an, a tavern owner could hardly expect to meet the competition without the musical or dancing talents of some handsome boy or girl from the West. That is, from what we call the Near East.
In the 8th century, the Chinese emperor established the Pear Garden, a large quarter within the imperial precincts of the city, where hundreds of dancers and musicians were trained for the entertainment of the court. Among them were performers from many nations. For example, Chinese sources of the period describe Central Asian boys dressed in Persian shirts and peaked beaded hats, who leapt and twirled, and Central Asian girls who emerged from artificial lotuses with the grace that inspired one poet to write, "Purple net shirts are set in motion, the dancers come. Girdles droop from gilded thighs, flowered waists are heavy. Hats revolve with golden bells, snowy faces turn." Later in the poem, at the climax of this dance, the girls pull down their blouses to reveal their bare shoulders.
Music and dance were not the only cultural imports from China. The Todaiji Temple has a treasury of ancient artworks, including these masks for the Chinese theatrical form known as Gagaku. This painting in Chinese style depicts the sacred deer that still roam freely in Nara today. Even the rectangular street plan for the capital city of Japan was borrowed from the grid pattern developed for the Chinese capital at Chang'an. As in China, the palace occupied a prominent position facing south. In 794, the imperial capital of Japan was moved here to Kyoto, which was then known as Heian-kyo, or the Heian Imperial City. During the Heian period, which lasted until 1185, the performance of music and the dance was very much a sign of good breeding. Here in the Gosho, the imperial palace, making music was part of the life of the courtiers, as much as it was of the professional musician. The correct performance of song, dance, or instrumental composition, both in public or private performance, consume much time and cause much anxiety, as is attested by the novels, pillow books, and diaries of the period. In Lady Murasaki's 11th century novel, The Tale of Genji, major characters are gentlemen and ladies of the court, most all of whom are accomplished musicians. While Prince Genji was the outstanding dancer, his closest friend To no Chujo was the best musician, renowned as a flute player. Other gentlemen played the sho and hichiriki. Genji himself was an expert koto player and master teacher who organized the ladies living in his mansion into an orchestra that rivaled the one at the imperial palace. Music played an important role in the private lives of the main characters. It was a vehicle for courtship, and concerts were a regular part of formal occasions. One vivid chapter describes a formal outing in Chinese pleasure boats. The spring blossoms in Lady Murasaki's garden inspired this poem. Our boats row out into the bright spring sun, and water drops from the oars like scattering petals. Genji hired carpenters to build two impressive barges, one for the ladies in the shape of a phoenix, and one like a dragon to transport the musicians. As the most accomplished of the professional musicians struck up a melody in the sojo mode, the courtiers sang along. Genji's brother, Prince Hotaru, twice sang Green Willow in very good voice, and Genji occasionally joined in. The night was passed in music, and the party continued into the next day. To present a floral offering, 8 of the prettiest girls performed a dance, half dressed as birds and half as butterflies. The music for this dance rang forth, echoed by nature and the singing of warblers, while the waterfowl on the lake added their clucks and chirps. Amidst the delicate flowers of spring, the butterflies seemed to soar even higher than birds. It was with very great regret that the audience saw the dance come to an end. This very dance is also depicted in a famous 14th century scroll, known as the Shinsei Kogakuzu.
Other drawings not only show things seen in present-day Gagaku, but also instruments that are long since gone. Through the scroll, we can view entire ensembles that have disappeared. The Ginjo-raku dance you saw is also found on the scroll, but there are other dances.
This is a mask from the UCLA collection for the dance Nasori that you saw at the beginning of the program. Dances are classified, according to Confucian terms, into those of the left and those of the right. It is easy to tell them apart. Dances of the left emphasize the color red, as you see in this wonderful costume from the dance Ranryo-o. You will see that dance at the end of the program. Dances of the right use green costumes. Here is Togi-sensei in a costume for the dance Hitoku. Yuge-san, tell me about the story and the special movements of this dance.
Well, Kitoku is about a war that occurred in the 1st century BC. The dancer is a leader of the Huns who were defeated in that war. The first movement is a movement depicting his men being cut down, and the second movement is the use of the spear.